What's going on YouTube? My name's Abe with LTH, and as you can see today, we're upgrading the HomeLab. So come with me and check out what we're about to do. Okay, so as you can see, we actually have some Mikrotik devices. I have a Mikrotik RB, I believe it is, 5000, yeah, RB5009 UPRS-IN. So this is the one with 2.5 gig, a SFP plus port, and then this supports multiple power and PoE in and out. And I bought this with my own money, just as an FYI, but I did reach out to Mikrotik, and they were willing to send us a 16 port Ethernet switch. So we're gonna try layer 2 routing, layer 3 routing with this, and then they also sent me their CAP-AX, which is an access point, and we're gonna try to hook this up and implement these things or integrate these things into our HomeLab. So this is our current old HomeLab, and we're going from an 8U to a 12U, and partly why I wanted to do that, as I build out the data center project, we need a couple more U spaces for some more mini computers, and I'm going to try some firewall and network segmentation and routing with Mikrotik, the OpenSense box, and then layer 2 switching. And so this is just going to kind of help us build out a technology stack and a strategy for this data center project, and just to introduce you guys to another technology that you could use within your home labs, being Mikrotik, because they are really good bang for your buck. I honestly don't think like Unify or anyone comes close. I do think Mikrotik needs to increase their 2.5 gig switching line a little bit more, but let me move all this stuff over to the top, or to the 12U rack, and then we'll go through it all. Okay, so one of the first things I want to try to cover, and I haven't really figured out how we're going to do this, is take our pfSense firewall and go from a 140 millimeter fan to a 80 millimeter fan, because that was just too big to sit on top. And I came across some 3D print files that should allow us to connect a fan to the top of this box to keep it cool. Although I know it's passively cooled, about 10 months into using this, it started to overheat, and I just don't think the thermal paste or how they have this designed is adequate enough to keep these cool when you're pushing gigs and gigs of data through it. So what I did is I went out and we bought a Affinity fan, USB fan, but in the 80 millimeter format. And so this will allow our device to sit more centrally on top and not hang over the edges. So let me go ahead and take these little pieces off so we can hook the mount on, and I'll show you how this works. Okay, so now that I have the feet off the one side with the direction where the wind blows, just like that, we have these little plastic feet. I just want to make sure I'm getting this on camera. That allows this plastic piece, essentially right there if you can see it, to slide down the middle of the router, just like this. And so when we have this little plastic piece on here, now it gives us a way to hold the fan on there. And so what I'm going to do, and you want to do this carefully if you go and download these files and copy what I'm doing, is one, I want it to be faced probably, we'll probably still do it backwards like this, but connect these on ever so carefully, because these little edge pieces do tend to break relatively easily. And so I just put them on the corners. Okay, so I just trying to be really careful. We just lined them up with the holes and pushed it on. And so now it's like clipped around the corners, and do the same with the other side. Okay, and so now that those are on, we're just going to go ahead and slide this onto our box like so. This will probably be the best direction to put it. Get both sides on, and then we can center this, and now we have a fan mounted to our topped-in box. Now the other piece I designed, let me grab. The other piece I designed is this mount, which can be found linked down below on our Patreon if you would like to grab this. But what this is going to do is now take our box and make it rack mountable. So you want to align these little screw holes with the bottom of the screw holes on this case and just slide it on just like that. And then if you'd like to unscrew the screws that were in there and screw this back in, you can do that. And then we're gonna be able to mount this in the chassis. And so I'm hoping that this is going to fit, and I actually put it on the wrong side. Okay guys, for some reason, rebuilding my rack and 3D printing these parts have been crazy. I've like broken these, dropped it on accident, whatever, taken off supports, things broke, but I was recording 23 seconds in, the video stopped recording, but it was all that I've done, it's 2 days later, is I reprinted this, I mounted the N100 topped in OpenSense box in here, and then I removed the fan pieces for the top and the bottom of that fan so I can slide it onto the OpenSense box, which has allowed us to have enough clearance between the first view of the rack and the top of the rack, which has allowed us to mount the fan. And so now we have enough room for this fan to mount, and then the USB will just go to a power strip that I will connect onto the back, and I'll show you later in the video. Okay, and so now what's gonna go below that is gonna be these Mikrotik RB5009 UPR plus S plus IN, essentially 2.5 gig ports with an SFP plus port, multiple ways of powering it, and PoE in and PoE out. And so this will go below that in its own 1U, but I broke the piece that I'm mounting this in with when I was removing the supports, which as you can see, my evidence is right here on the table. So we're gonna move on to the next part while I do that and mount the Mikrotik CS318 16 gig ports and then 2 SFP plus ports on this. And this comes with these rack ears. So I know if you look up the specs and the distance between the two posts of the like T2, T1, the Tech Mojo, 12U, 9U, whatever, it says this is too wide by like 2 millimeters, but when you build it all out and whatever tolerances have blessed us with the little extra spacing of the brackets and the width of the switch, it still fits in this rack perfectly. So I'm going to skip that 1U where the router is going to sit, and I'm going to mount this switch, and it fits with, like, I'm telling you, maybe 1/10 of a millimeter. So plus or minus some tolerances. So I'm gonna get this mounted, and then we'll get on with the next part of the video. Okay, so the next part is I'm going to mount this 1U 16 port patch panel. And I know some people are gonna probably comment down below about this, but if you notice, the SFP ports are sideways versus vertical. So the cable will go in sideways and then go vertical to the switch, but this saves us space. This makes it all in 1U versus having to take up 2 U's. And so we're gonna give this a shot and see if we like it. If not, we hate it, we can change it out, so be it. So as you can see right here, that it is sideways, that port, just like that. And when you have the back, so we'll just say we have the inclined little nudge faced up, if you were to print this yourself, and you slide in that little lip into the bottom, and then the clip on the top there will just get pushed in, and they clip in like that, and they're actually super tight. The tolerance is great. And then I just used a generic 25 pack of Cat 6. So I'll have them linked down below, or actually on the article for our website. So let me go ahead and just plug all these in real quick. Okay, now that that's all populated, I'm gonna go ahead and slap this in the rack right below our switch, and then we'll get on with the next part. Okay, and now the next part is to take these 3 mini computers, take them out of here, and throw them in the rack right below that patch panel. So let me go ahead and do that, and I'm actually also gonna switch these out from PLA for the same mount, but just in PETG. Now these have been running for about a year in PLA. I think they're fine in PLA, but for consistency's sake and my own mental health, I wanted them to all be in PETG, so I repinned them. And so let me go ahead and put these 3 machines over here. Okay, and so I just slide these out the back and then of this, and I'm gonna slide them into the back of this rack and get these populated. So we're just gonna go right around, find their slots, and you can kind of see through the plastic there. We're just gonna slide that bad boy right into place and do the same thing with our other 2 nodes in our Proxmox cluster. And then we have one more device we need to move over from this rack, which is this mini PC right here, which is actually our Proxmox backup server. So once again, another custom design I made, but this is the space for the mini PC. So I'll show you guys. We have the space for the mini PC right here, and this is just a VJ or GKE N97 with, I believe this one has, it's 8 or 16 gigs of RAM, and then I just do USB to 2.5-inch drives, and then it has like 2 NICs on the back, HDMI Type-C, whatever, but I just use it as a backup for my virtual machines. And so what we're gonna do is just slide this into here. And so if you have one of these little machines, go check it out. But just like that, it sits in there and it has a little lip. So if you push on any of the ports from the front, plugging stuff in, it's not gonna come out the back. And then we take our NVMe drives and we slide them right in there, and they just sit in there like that, a little bit of friction, and they're good to go. And then there's 2 more USB ports and 3 more slots, or excuse me, 3 more USB ports and 3 more slots. So I just made it enough for the 4 USB ports on the front if you wanted to put 4 drives in here. And I'm gonna go ahead and mount this right up here in this last slot. And then the rest of the 4 U's are for future upgrades. And when I'm doing this data center project, I'm planning to populate these with nodes for that, and then put these in their own DMZ and through the networking stuff that we're gonna be messing with. So they're completely disconnected from the HomeLab, logically and physically network-wise. And that will allow us to then host stuff and test it out without having the rest of our HomeLab or personal network being vulnerable. So let me go ahead and screw this in right now. So what am I gonna use to label this? I'm gonna use my phone, and I can type in an app and create labels on this little pieces of thermal paper stickers. And then I'm going to mark all the nodes, what their names are, what their purpose are, and then put them on here, as well as use another label, thermal label, that was a lot of thermal, that go around Ethernet cables, and then hook each, or label the ends of each Ethernet cable on the back end. So when I'm tracing stuff or I'm unplugging stuff, I know what goes to what. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that all right now with my phone, which I'm recording with. And then when this is all set up and put together, I will show you guys a close-up view. All right, so you're all gonna think I'm a little ghetto for this, but I took the mount out of the back of the Mikrotik access point that slides on, and then I just used the drywall screws just like that until it got tight and it won't move against the bottom of the grate after I centered it. And then this will allow us to then just take the access point, and it's nice and centered, and just click it into place just like that. So that's how I'm gonna mount the Wi-Fi access point to the top of this chassis for all the people who are gonna ask. Okay, so the next thing I'm gonna do is take this power strip, which has 1, 2, 3, 4 power pieces, outlets on the back and 4 on the front, as well as USB and Type-C. And I'll try to find it and link it on our website, but there's an article showing how you snip off the corners of these and then 3D print these brackets and put them on there. And then it's the width of a 10-inch rack, and you can mount this. So I'm gonna mount this to the back of the rack, and we will then plug all of our devices into this, because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that leaves us with 1 empty port, and actually 8 if we count the Wi-Fi access point and we don't connect that to PoE. So that would be the perfect amount for this, which means yes, we would need a slot for 4 more, but we could always go out and get another one of these. This just allows us to have a more contained system that's a little bit cleaner and has a really nice long power cable that'll allow us to plug this directly into the wall, so we don't do any of that ghetto daisy chaining stuff that y'all shouldn't be doing either. So let me go put this in and get this all put together, and we can cover this in its completeness. Okay guys, and just like that, this thing's done. So I am wearing a different t-shirt, but I'm not kidding, it probably took me a week to a week and a half to get this organized, things printed, things broke, retrying things, cable management to the best I could do in a 10-inch rack because cables are super long, to having to order new screws and so much more. So let me take you along and show you what I've done with the HomeLab 10-inch rack. Okay, so up top, we just have a Mikrotik CAPAX Wi-Fi 6 access point, which was sent to me by them. No money exchanged hands or anything like that, but they did send me this. So I just like to mention that, as well as they sent me the switch, but I did buy the RB5009 router because I'd like to mess with it for myself. And then at the very top, we have a Topton N100 mini PC running OpenSense. Again, the RB5009 router, which is not in use yet. Our 16 port, I believe this is a CSS 318 16G 2SIN. And then below here, we just have a 16 port patch panel. Below that, we have a VGKE N95 mini PC running our Proxmox backup server. And then we have our node cluster, which you guys have seen in all our videos, 3 Dell mini PCs with i5-8500Ts, 32 gigs of RAM, and then they're all sharing Intel Enterprise SATA SSDs for a Zeph cluster, so we have high availability and fault tolerance between all of these nodes. And then we have 4U space for upgrades and expansion, which I'm planning to use this for the data center project as we test and trial things. I'm gonna put more stuff in here for that project. So let me spin this thing around and show you the back. Okay, so here's the back. It is a little messy. I'm going to print a cover probably to cover these wires, but essentially I've taken all the like 6 foot, 7 foot long, whatever cables it are for all these computers that would go under a desk and extend to a wall outlet, and shove them into about a 6-inch space. So it is deep, but I have this little 8 outlet, 4 USB, 4 Type-C power strip that fits in a 10-inch rack, and that supports 1500 watts. So I do have a connector to the wall outlet measuring wattage, and this whole HomeLab plus my Ugreen bass sitting behind me sits sub 85 watts, sub 100 watts 99% of the time. So I'm not worried about the power utilization coming out of this. And then I have another 16 port patch panel. And why I put this in is it's essentially just like a straight through cable to the front patch panel to the switch for a couple things. So everything in the rack is directly connected from there to the patch panel on the front to the switch, but some things I unplug often, or like the TrueNAS device that's not sitting in here, my PC, my wife's PC, and so if I want to move this around, I can unplug those, unplug this power strip from the wall, and it's essentially a whole mobile HomeLab station that I can take anywhere with me. And so that's kind of the idea behind that, as well as 2 ports from the 5009 router on the front. This just gives me some ports to configure or move things around in the future if I so need to, just a little bit of customability. I'm really not sure what I'm going to do with the 5009 quite yet, but potentially make some videos on that. So I wanted, those 2 ports on the front to be accessed back here, which, I might be able to do like some jumper cable styling to get connection to the switch or whatever I do with that. And actually lied because the router is plugged in to this, no, I think it's right here. So it goes from there, and then I have to plug that into whatever, or if I wanted to get rid of the OpenSense box, I could just plug it into this port for the internet, and we would be all good to go. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about is this custom 3D printed piece I have here as well that I've designed, and it essentially holds 4 65 watt mini PC power adapters. that has 3 in it for our 3 mini PCs. And then I've kind of just shoved the Topton N100 OpenSense off to the side. It doesn't quite fit, but that gets it up and out of the way. So that is the back of this device, and that's it for this video. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments below, and stay tuned for more HomeLab content.